I was racing down Guadalupe Street here in Austin. I was crying, I was praying, I was scared, I'd had it, I couldn't turn it off. God, please help me, this is too much, too much. All of a sudden, I felt this warmth over me. I opened my eyes, looked up, and there's this huge light right above my head. 2 seconds, I was hit head on by a speeding car. But all of a sudden, I was outside my body, and I felt like I was expanding outwards. And so infinite universe is like a sky full of stars. And I land in this infinite blue void. And it's the mind of God. I was born in 47. I had 2 older brothers, 45 and 46. I grew up with 6 brothers. Basically, I was an altar boy, a Catholic, knew the whole Mass in Latin, was always curious about God and fairness and justice. I always assumed if we're going to be judged by the rules, we should know the rules, you know? So out of all my brothers, I was the only one that was constantly seeking truth, the knowledge. They're all businessmen, and that's great. In 1977, sort of out of the clear blue, I was traveling with a band. I quit the band, need some time alone. And this was January 31st, 1977. That day, I'd felt kind of strange. Everything felt a little bit strange. That evening, I went in with my roommates, brought my gear in, said goodbye to the band. I was going to take a break for a while. And everything started feeling weird. I could hear what people were thinking or about to say before they'd say it. That startled me. Everybody went to bed, and I went to bed too, but I couldn't sleep. I was up all night, having all these visions and thoughts like never had before. In the morning, I heard my roommate go outside and get the newspaper, make some coffee. I hopped up, walked in the living room, and he's reading the paper as he walks in the door, and I could read the paper through his eyes. I saw the headline about Jimmy Carter and Bob. But shocked me. He threw it down the table. I kept staring at it. He said, "You okay?" I went, yeah. Well, that was the start of this week-long voyage into psychic ability that I had no idea I was destined for or that how it would end up, but I knew within 24 hours, life was not the same. I couldn't think about the normal things I would be doing because I was becoming engulfed in this psychic ability. I could tell who was going to call on the phone. Someone would say they're going to come over. I'd look at the clock, it'd jump from 10:15 to 3:38. And I'd know they're coming out at 3:38, then the clock would jump back. I was freaking out my roommates, freaking out some friends. And I'll give you an example of this. My friend and roommate at the time, Brandon, he was real concerned. I had another roommate, he just thought I was crazy. And to some degree, I could certainly understand. But Brandon and I went to a bar that night, and he was asking me what it was like. And before I walked into the bar at a particular spot, I felt this strange feeling, like another one. Walked into the bar, listened to the band, too loud, came out, sat in the bar in the front on the stools, felt like I was outside all of a sudden. And I saw these people walk right through me. I opened my eyes. No, I'm still in the stool. The door opened, and these people walked through dressed exactly as I'd seen them just a couple seconds before outside the door. I tried this a couple times, and I could do it each time. People walked by, and I'd pick up what they were thinking about. My roommate came in and asked me what was going on. I showed him how I could predict what people were going to be wearing. That blew his mind. And this went on for several days. I'll give you another example. We were at a hamburger joint called the Filling Station. And he was asking me, because he'd been observing me getting this escalating psychic ability and kind of not being normal, and I wasn't. But he asked me what it was like now, and I said, well, I'll explain, it's easier. I said, you see those 2 ladies way over in the corner, as furthest away from us we could see? And he looked around and went, I don't think so. I said, okay, well, the brunette who is facing away from us, I'm going to have her write us a letter, write me a letter. What? I said, I'm going to have her write me a letter, perfectly harmless. And the reason I was having thoughts like that is I was either picking up things from the world, the universe, or interjecting. And sometimes I couldn't tell the difference if I was creating something or witnessing it. It wasn't like it was 24, 48 hours ago. It was a completely different world out of the clear blue. I didn't know what button to push to turn it off or what was going on. But I kept thinking about that brunette. Said, I'm the guy over here in the blue shirt. Write me a letter. I imagined it like a light, like on an airplane, when you walk down the hall or a theater, directing her right over to me. Of course, there wasn't any light. I didn't walk by anything. And 15 minutes later, when they walked out, the brunette was second. She threw a napkin down on the table, and she had written in big, bold letters, "Why are you doing this to me?" Man, I'm affecting other people's lives. I wanted to run out and ask her what she experienced, because I knew what I was thinking. Why'd you write this? What'd you feel? But I was too shocked. I went through a week of things like that, and it got more and more intense. I kept feeling these guardian angels. I didn't see them, but I could feel them. They felt like they were monitoring me, and I started calling them the monitors, or they agreed that was a good term either way. And that gave me the little bit of confidence that everything was okay, because I was just going further and further out of this world and seeing visions and signs and patterns. And well, this went on for 7 days, and at the end of 7 days, I was racing down Guadalupe Street here in Austin. I was crying, I was praying, I was scared, I'd had it, I couldn't turn it off. God, please help me, this is too much. Then and there's a bunch of people watching me. They're wondering what the hell's going on with me, and I didn't care. I wasn't embarrassed, I was terrified. At the same time, I felt so enlightened, but it was too heavy, too much of it wasn't normal. I couldn't deal with it. So finally, all of a sudden, I felt this warmth over me. I opened my eyes, looked up, and there's this huge light right above my head, 5 or 6 feet. And I looked around at all these people watching me, because I was the talk of the moment on that street. And none of them even acknowledged this light, and I didn't care. I looked back up at it, and then I saw these hands, 7 white-robed angel-type figures with their hands on this glass or crystal table about that thick, and that's what was making the light, and it was encompassing me like a tube. And I felt so good. My fear from just a few seconds ago was totally gone. Instantly. I felt, wow, what a feeling. And these monitors said, "Do you trust us?" And I said, "Man, I don't understand what's going on." Blah, 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 blah. Shh. Do you trust us? I looked around, and none of these people could, of course, see this, and they're looking at me talking to an empty sky, and I didn't care. I said, "Absolutely, I do." And within 2 seconds, I was hit head on by a speeding car. But all of a sudden, I was outside my body, and I saw my body get tumbled over and bang into the car and break the windshield. And then the whole city of Austin turned into a little dot. And I felt like I was expanding outwards in all directions, which at that very instant, I realized that's how we leave the body. At death, we don't go like an arrow, we go out in all directions. Conversely, when we're born, we collapse in from the universe in all directions, get a complete imprint of astrology and the signs and so forth that make us unique, So anyway, I kept expanding, and finally went through what I felt like was the edge of the universe, and through this level of consciousness that seemed to call itself the colors. It was a level of consciousness that when we collapse into the planet at birth, we absorb that, and that gives us the ability to use our senses, our brain, our hearing, our smell, our psychic ability to understand who we are. It's that simple. The colors gave us that power. Now, whether we use it or not, it's a choice, of course. I had no idea who I was at this time. It was just pure ecstasy. It was expanding. And I saw infinite universes. I came out of this one and saw infinite universes, like a sky full of stars. And there's the one I came out of. And then all these universes seemed to spin around into like a big tunnel of light. Perfect description. A lot of people have used that, and it was. There's like these silver clouds going around me, and I'm going through it at hyper speed. No awareness of who I am, really, and it's pure sensation, not scary at all. It's beautiful. And all of a sudden, I come out of this like a clown getting shot out of a cannon at a circus. Bam! And I land in this infinite blue void. And it's the mind of God. It had two choices I saw immediately. It was infinite beyond bias. It either existed, and everything can possibly exist, which is indeed the case, or it wouldn't exist and nothing would exist. There's no in between. It was either infinite creativity with no bias either. It didn't, it gives us all the chance to be humans and create our biases or get over them. It's not biased. It's infinite creativity. And I was witnessing this, startled, not even aware that I was witnessing it, until suddenly it felt like I was witnessing it instead of being at one with it. And I was drawn back through this tunnel of light and back into this universe. And I had a certain degree of concern, wonder, what's happening? Who am I? Where am I going now? Boy, that was a nice place to be, But the closer I got to Earth, the more I felt like I had some affiliation with it. And right before I entered back into my body, not even knowing it was me yet, I saw 3 series of pictures. And one was about all this chaos that we are going through now, the whole planet is, as we move from the age of Pisces to Aquarius. That's why every society is going through extremes. We're not being punished. We're being shown all the flaws and the holes in ourselves, in our systems, so we can fix them. The second series of pictures was about the world to come once we overcome all this extremism we're going through. The whole planet's going through extremes. The third series of pictures, and the second series of pictures was pretty enlightening. The first series of pictures about now was pretty challenging, but I realized there's nothing I can do. This is where the world's going. This is the changing of the tides, changing of consciousness, changing of the ages, much less of politics and money and everything else. The third series of pictures, I saw a musician who was a psychic and turned out to be me. And I saw myself playing in other places, playing piano. I barely played at the time. And then I saw my body laying in the street, people screaming. And I jump back into my body and I feel this red hair all over me. It's the driver of the car. He's terrified. He ran out of his car. Man, I tried to stop. I couldn't. I remember that. He was terrified. Well, I didn't feel anything but ecstasy. I felt no pain. I could see the car was all crashed up. The windshield was broken. People were screaming and hollering. Call the police, call an ambulance. And me, I was just going, wow, what just happened? Where did I just go? So I jumped to my feet and the driver's trying to get me to sit down. You're in shock. I said, no, man, I'm not in shock. I'm not even hurt. I know that. How do you know that? Oh, man, I can't explain this to anybody. I think I'll just walk home. Bye, everybody. The show's over. And then as I started to leave, they said, no. Cops, ambulance, police, just stick around, and otherwise they'll be chasing you through the alleys. They're right. So, okay, I'll wait. And I could hear the sirens. And within seconds, it seemed, sirens were there, and the ambulance, and police, and cops. And they're all looking around for a body laying in the middle of the street. Oh, a guy got hit by a car. And I was standing up talking to people like nothing happened. And they were kind of shocked. They were kind of backing away from me, stunned. They just seen me get smashed by a speeding car, jump up and push the driver away. But at that moment, when I came back in my body and jumped up and realized I didn't get a scratch, didn't even feel it, I've started believing in miracles at that very second. And I've never let up on that. In fact, I learned how to try to create them, and people should. But anyway, the cops' ambulance came looking around for the body. I admitted it was me. Can I just go home? I'm not hurt. No. They had to take me to the emergency room. They x-rayed me, checked me out, not a scratch, nothing wrong. They cannot understand how the car is so smashed up with my body and I didn't even feel it. No scratch, no nothing. And every time I tried to even begin to explain what had happened where I'd been, that made no sense, and I could understand why. And they thought I was crazy, and I could understand why. And I wasn't in a position to argue with them, because, this is kind of weird. Then they wheeled me over to a section of the emergency room because I wasn't hurt. They couldn't do anything to me after x-rays and everything. And then a guy came walking over. I knew his name. He was a psychiatrist. In fact, I'd had premonitions about this whole episode during this week. Flashing lights, cops, ambulance, police. I had no idea it was me. I thought I was going to witness something, Turned out it was me. But he walked over and I knew his name and all about him, and he was blown away. Have I ever met you before? Have you ever been a patient of mine? How do you know this? And I tried to explain to him what I'd been through, and he just said, man, I've heard about this, read about it. I've never seen anybody that's been through it or claims to have. And I said, well, right now you're looking at someone. How would I know all about your wife, your kids, your furniture that you moved last week, where you graduated? I mean, you walked in, I told you all about your stuff. And he said, I'm mind blown, I'm curious, but we can't let you just go home. We're going to have to commit you to a psychiatric hospital. And I had no complaints against that because I probably would have done the same thing. Looking at myself, it didn't make sense to anybody in the outside world. I found that very easy to grasp at the time, even though I was completely empowered by what I saw. So they had to take me to jail. They booked me in jail for 2 days until they could get the order of protective custody signed by a judge and my family to put me in a psychiatric hospital. And after 2 days, that got done. And then they took me to Shoal Creek Psychiatric Hospital. It was here in Austin, Texas at the time. I still drive by it a lot. Now it's something else. And I had quite a time in the psychiatric hospital because I entertained the kids there. I played guitar, played piano. They saw me as Mr. Smiles. Every day my psychiatrist would come in to check on me at a random time when he was making his rounds, which was whenever. But the first day, before I even met him, I looked up the clock and saw it spin around to 2:38. And I thought, man, that's telling me something. Maybe that's when my psychiatrist is coming in. I ran up to the office, or down to the receptionist down the hall, got a bunch of envelopes and a bunch of sheets of paper, and one of them I wrote 2:38, put that in it, and gave it to her, said, give it to the doctor when he comes up before he sees me. Okay. So at about 2:38, the doctor walked in my room with his envelope, and he said, what is this, a letter? I said, no, it's just one word, read it. And he goes, I'll read it later. I said, it's one word, just open up and read it. He opened up 2:38, what does that mean? I said, look at your watch. 2:38. Next day, the same thing. Third day, he didn't want to open the letters anymore. And he was a very good guy, but he was a very basic fundamentalist Christian textbook psychiatrist. And I said, you've never had a psychic experience, you've never done psychic ability, because he kept saying, you've done LSD, which I did. He said, this is a flashback. Nope, I know the difference. This ain't a flashback, this is real, man. I could take all the LSD on the planet, and if I jumped in front of a car, got hit by this, or bitten by a dog, I'd feel it, This was a miracle. I didn't expect him to believe me, but while I was talking to him, I talked to him a lot about his kids. He never mentioned them. I mentioned his kids and what they were going. I was picking it up. I'm picking up everything. They started giving me heavy doses of lithium carbonate for extremism, and it brought me down. A week later, I was pretty. But the psychic ability kept going for 4, 5, 6 days. Finally, after 10 days, they took me before a board of psychiatrists, 5, 8 of them, and a couple nurses and workers on the hall. They want to see if you're okay to let go, or if they have to seek another 10-day mandatory commitment, because they don't want to let me go. And I told him, I said, I ain't changing my story. This is what happened, you guys. You're psychiatrists. You ought to be asking me questions, I can explain to you a lot of what you're curious about because I just went there. I've had no medical training. Y'all have, but you ought to ask. They realized I was smart, stable. Everybody on the floor called me Mr. Smiles. The nurses loved me. I entertained everybody. No threat to me or anybody, so they let me go. And a couple months later, I had a small rebound, went through sort of a similar scenario. I kept asking my guides for months. This happened in February 7th, 1977. I asked my guides over and over and over, why me? I mean, I got no complaints, the most beautiful experience anybody could ever get. I'm so grateful and so thankful. But what did I do to win the draw, to win the lottery, to get the voyage? And months later, it was like the fall of 77, I was on my porch outside the front yard playing guitar, and I felt them very strong. I couldn't see them, but I felt them. And I looked at a spot in the yard, and it felt like, here's where they are. They're not visible this time, but they shot a light into my head like a laser and started talking in one deep voice, kind of like James Earl Jones, just like I'd heard him before, Do You Trust Us? And the same time they were speaking, I was seeing what they were saying rolling off like screen credits at a Superman movie, vanishing in the distance. And the wind stopped, traffic stopped, time stopped. I was looked up and there was a car that was just, everything stopped for a second. And they said at the same time that I was reading this, and I'm paraphrasing, you had this experience because you always wanted to know. As a Catholic, an altar boy, you're always asking to know about God and Jesus. You studied, you read Edgar Cayce, you've been learning how to give readings. You're constantly trying to expand your consciousness. And then sometime in October, September, when they confirmed to me that I got this because I was curious. And I'd like to understate that. Seek the answer, seek knowledge, believe in your higher gods, believe in your higher consciousness, seek truth, seek justice, love yourself, seek power within, good power. That's not selfish. That's making the best of yourself and your package deal you can. There's no limit to how much we can grow internally and spiritually and psychically and mentally and with emotions and love and concern and compassion and good ideals. There's no limit. And when we grow in that area, we do so to get better practical results, to make life work better, right here, right now. So that was sort of the experience I went through and what I learned. And in 1980, I met a lady who did readings by this method called lithomancy. It involves 16 stones. 10 of them represent planets, like astrology: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And the other 6 stones are love, life, luck, commitment, timing, and place. And I do it over the phone now. People call, or I call them. I charge the stones up. They say drop. I drop them into a circle about that size, about 12, 14 inches. And I read them like a clock. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I go around and read them like sections of a pie over the next 3 months and record the reading and send them to people. And of course, nobody can tell you everything absolute 100% correct, because if they could, that would mean you have no free will, And what I try to let people know is what period they're going through in their lives and what they can do to become empowered in spite of the circumstances, which we often can't change. But we can always change the most important things thanks to free will. How we interpret things, how we look at things, perspective, attitude, intentions. We can always upgrade in that area. And when we do, we get better results. So I encourage people to meditate, ask the universe and your guides to help you, ask them to show you how they communicate, ask them for verification. As it says in the Bible and just about every religion in some degree, in some language, ask and you shall receive.